As a child, I was always just obsessed with the globe. Family came first, and that's fine. I've been racing to catch up ever since. I think my favorite trip overall was definitely my first solo female trip, which was 2 weeks in Norway. I say this to them daily. People approach me at my job all the time and ask me, how do you do that? How do you afford that? How do you get the time off for that? And the number one thing is you have to make it a priority and fit it into your life. I'm not a wealthy person. I work part-time. Approximately 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I went through a double mastectomy. Number one, the planet is not nearly as scary as people make it out to be and the media makes it out to be. Number two is
Hello, Project Ultimate Lifers. We are here today with Chris Garber, who is on a tour of the Middle East region, and we're going to learn a lot from her. So here's the story in the background. Chris and I have known each other for a long time. She is the sister-in-law of my best friend from high school, which means my best friend's husband's sister, in case you need some clarification on that. Feels complicated. It's not. We first met at my best friend Brandy's bachelorette party, which was one of the most exceptional experiences I think I've had in my entire life. So go Brandy, go be Ran. So this is the story. Recently I got an email. Chris is going to be, or a message from my friend. Oh, she's going to be coming through the Middle East. Great, totally forgot about it. For some random reason, I ended up checking my email, and 20 hours previously, Chris had messaged me that she was going to be in the Middle East and wanted to get together. She landed about an hour later. So I feel like it was meant to be. This is in Doha. We get together, have some experiences, totally connect, and she's like, oh, I'm gonna be going around the rest of the Middle East. And I was like, I've been wanting to go to Dubai. And I said, I'll throw this out there, maybe I'll meet up with you. So here we are now at the end of our adventure in Dubai. Over the last few days, I've gotten to really know Chris and her story, and I think it is something that is super inspirational and needs shared, because she has done something that I feel it's worth sharing. Let her tell the story. Okay, so Chris, tell us a bit about yourself, your background, etc. What do people need to know?
Well, I guess that I was a stay-at-home mom for 13 years, raising my children and not working, had been out of a work industry for a long time, re-entered the work field very specifically to start traveling for the purpose of traveling. And then I started working full-time with my family, trying to take care of my kids and make them a priority, but still try to find a way back to who I am and see this world.
Okay. And what about traveling? What connected you to it? Why did you want to travel?
As a child, I was always just obsessed with the globe. Anything to do with Mutual of Omaha, Wild Kingdom, about animals or castles and fairy tales. It made me want to see all of those places. I grew up as a poor child and didn't get the opportunity to travel at all. So once I was old enough to make that happen for myself, I wanted it to happen sooner than it did, but the family came first, and that's fine. I've been racing to catch up ever since. So.
Okay, awesome. So tell us a little bit about your travel experience. Favorite places you've gone. She's gone to something like 57 plus countries. So there's a lot to choose from for stories wise, but what would you say some of your favorite places have been?
I think my favorite trip overall was definitely my first solo female trip, which was 2 weeks in Norway, exploring as much of the country as I could. I started in the Arctic Circle and traveled my way down the coast, hit all the major cities, but more importantly to me was all the major hikes, did epic hikes. I love nature, but I also love architecture. There is nothing that looks like Norway anywhere in the world. But then obviously the love for animals took me to Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda, and there's really nothing that can compare to that. So I love exotic places you don't see every day, like Canada, Morocco, places like that in the US, people typically go, what? You went there? That's a place? So those are my favorites.
Yeah, awesome. When you're traveling, what makes a really positive traveling experience for you?
I am a visual person. I love visual stimulation, whether it be from impeccable nature or wondrous architecture, but I think at the heart of everything, it's the people that I meet and come across, whether it's people that live in that country or people that are traveling through it. I have made connections all over the world, and I've gotten to the point now when I do travel that I'm almost always able to meet up with somebody that I have met traveling before, and there's nothing like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So something that is really unique about your experience is I feel like I'm also a person who I've been outside of the US for almost a decade, and you've almost been to double the amount of countries that I have been. A lot of people think that you have to make a lot of money in order to travel. What would you say to them?
I say this to them daily. Like, honestly, people approach me at my job all the time and ask me, how do you do that? How do you afford that? How do you get the time off for that? And the number one thing is you have to make it a priority and fit it into your life. I'm not a wealthy person. I work part-time, but I make a financial plan where all of my paychecks, like about approximately a third of my paycheck, probably goes towards a travel fund that I have on hand. And then I search the internet. I sign up for all of the email lists. I follow travel bloggers, anybody that's going to mention a deal or publish a deal. The key is to jump on that deal instantly, because those amazing deals sell out super quick. So as long as you have your funds on hand, have already planned that out, you can jump on that and make it happen. Believe me, I would not have been to near the amount of countries with the salary that I make if I didn't plan for it. Mm-hmm. But I enjoy that process.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about that process. What does that look like for you?
So most people have hobbies where they like to search for rocks or, put together puzzles. I like to plan trips. Like, I'll just say in my mind, I'm going to this country because I have an interest in it. I will plan an itinerary. I generally start by Googling images of things that I want to see or researching where other people have been. And then I find out, is that something I'm interested in? When it is, I star it in my Google Maps, and then I work out an outline map of where I'm going to be, and that helps me decide where to look for accommodation and how to work out the logistics of getting from place to place, that sort of thing, to stay within budget.
You also have a story, right, where you too kind of came to that sort of realization that life is very short. Would you like to share that?
Sure. Approximately 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I went through a double mastectomy and some hormone treatment that lasted a long time, followed by 7 surgeries of reconstruction. I'm not completed with that as of now. Still a journey, taking a little time off to process it. But it definitely makes you realize life is short, and I don't want to give up on the dreams that I have. And actually at that point, interestingly enough, I had a trip already scheduled with my best friend going to explore Romania and Transylvania during Halloween time. And it meant a lot to me to be able to bring a friend along and enjoy that together. And I was devastated, thinking I'm going to miss this trip. And the timing was everything, being there at Halloween. So I purposely booked a surgery with a surgeon that I hadn't even met yet, just to get on his calendar to make sure I could make that trip. And I went for 2 weeks to Romania, 6 weeks after having a mastectomy.
Now, this wasn't that's powerful, right? 6 weeks after surgery, you're still back on the road. That says passion to me.
Yes.
But cancer wasn't what inspired you to start traveling. How long had you been traveling before then?
I had been traveling before then for on a regular basis, I would say for probably about 8 years.
Okay.
Before that. I didn't travel at all when my children were young. I didn't start until my husband and I did vacations, around the ages of middle school age. I felt finally comfortable enough for that. I had done some traveling when I was really young, close to home, Mexico, Canada, the Caribbean, that sort of thing. But actually going to what I would consider an abroad country, my first was Paris, which was about 12 years ago.
Okay, very cool. Mm-hmm. And for people who have had cancer, I know you have lots of experience with that with other family members in your life. Did that influence and continue to motivate you, or how?
Absolutely. I lost my brother to cancer about 13 years ago, and he knew my love of the world and my obsession with always wanting to visit the castles and things from when I was a child. And it was important for him when he was very sick for me to promise him that I would make that happen. And I made that promise to him. And so that really kicked it into high gear. That's when I really started to travel and make it a priority. And then when I went through my own diagnosis, it upped the scale. It went from 1 to 2 trips a year to now my goal is always 3 international trips per year. It's not that I'm trying to check off a checklist. As a matter of fact, I didn't even realize how many countries I had been to until recently because people ask me so constantly. And I'm like, it's not about checking off countries. It's just about, having these experiences and seeing what looks appealing to me or what deal comes up. Mm-hmm. So as far as deciding to see every country in the world now that I've seen so many, now I'm like, I really do want to see every country in the world.
Yeah, I think that happens once you get that bug for travel. You have your first few experiences and you're like, now what's next?
Absolutely.
I too am at a point where the list of things to do is essential. I could climb every mountain. I could do every hike in the world, the process to it. For me, one of the kind of strategies I always had, because I also started traveling when I was like 19, and had a lot of different experiences. For me, it was just a yes attitude. So when experiences came up, I didn't necessarily pursue them as I must, the list or pursuing. It's just, okay, that makes sense. I'm at this part of the world. Living in Germany. Well, yeah, sure, let's go to Switzerland, to St. Gallen's for a sustainability conference, and couch surf with some college students, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. For me, it was like couch surfing, and you're more booking the trips. I think there's a lot more security when you're actually paying. Otherwise you're at the whim of other people's hospitality and generosity. I've also hosted tons of couch surfers, so I tried to pay that forward for them as well. But would you say that there's a certain attitude that goes along with, or like a mindset that goes along with being open to new experiences and new travel? And what would you say that is for people who maybe don't have that mindset?
I think that either you have a sense of adventure within you or you don't. Like, for instance, my husband does not enjoy traveling. He enjoys relaxing. And so a lot of people can't wrap their minds around this sense of adventure that we seek, or this yearning to see the world. And I think it's just something that's sort of in you. As far as bringing it out to other people, to me, I can look at a map and I just get excited.
Me too.
It's a natural thing. I'm attracted to maps as well. When I started traveling in the beginning, I always was interested in seeing places and in seeing the differences of the world. But as my travel has evolved, it's become more of seeing how we're all the same, and we all have the same hearts, and we all love our children and our families and our friends, and we all interact with each other in similar ways, more so than different ways. Mm-hmm. And the world feels smaller and smaller the more I travel, and it just feels better and safer understanding it more.
Mm-hmm. So you typically travel solo. I know you had mentioned some stories about you traveling with your sister and your husband in these different kind of scenarios, but you often travel solo. Yes. What would you say to somebody who was a female afraid of traveling solo?
Number one, the planet is not nearly as scary as people make it out to be and the media makes it out to be. Number two is just do it. Go outside of your comfort zone. It'll take one time, and then after that, it's so much easier. You'll have a better relationship with yourself. You'll have more confidence, and you're out there and you're more open to meeting more people and trying new experiences than you are if you're trying to make somebody else's itinerary happy for them and thinking about what they want and what makes them happy. So,
what makes a really good travel buddy?
A good sense of humor, a good storyteller, somebody that's easy, like go with the flow. I definitely have to have somebody that wants to see the sights and have the experiences and not do, like, I would consider touristy things. I don't consider myself a tourist. I consider myself a traveler. So I'm not going to be in the souvenir shops or wasting time, I feel, doing things that I could do at home. I want to do the things that I can't do anywhere but where I'm at.
What are some of the challenges that come up when you're traveling that people should be aware of if they want to start traveling?
You have to be able to go with the flow when you travel, because you're inevitably eventually going to come across a canceled flight last minute or a canceled tour last minute. And there was a lot of that went on during COVID. I experienced that a lot, and you have to kind of learn not to panic and accept things as they go. There's always a backup idea that you will find. It's all out there. Transportation is the difficult thing, I think, in any destination, especially as a solo traveler, because the tours that are available generally have a minimum of 2 people. So when you're a solo traveler, you either have to pay double the price to go on these tours in order to get them to book for you, or you have to find a way to get there yourself. I use a lot of apps for whether it's sharing rides together or coming down to renting a car. For instance, when I went to Barcelona recently, just specifically as a stepping point to get to Andorra, my tour was canceled because I was the only one that had signed up. And so I had to research a way to get there. I found a public bus that would take me there, and I overslept. What I wish I had known was that if I'd had an international driver's permit that was valid at that time, I could have easily rented a car and made it a very simple trip, but I wasn't prepared with that ahead of time. So I instead spent an extra day in Barcelona. There was plenty to see, and I was happy. You just have to kind of learn to brush it off.
Okay, cool. Are there any moments that are particularly like wow, awe-inspiring that you can recall?
Oh, awe-inspiring in a positive,
Well, positive or
experience.
negative,
As in what I experienced?
Sure.
I tend to get emotional on every trip over something. So when I went to Africa, every animal that I saw for the first time, I was in tears. When I walked into the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris for the first time, I was in tears. And just this trip, when I was in Abu Dhabi and visited the Grand Mosque, it was completely overwhelming. I think I cried 6 times. And it was such a good cry and such a good feeling. I think you can make anything into that awe moment, really, if you connect with it, and you'll find that even if you didn't think it was going to affect you that way.
Right. Awesome. What would you say to somebody who is at the beginning of their journey and they're either middle-aged and they want to get into it, start traveling, seeing the world, maybe they recognize that something's come up for them and life is shorter than they think it is, or somebody who is 25, 20 years old, just right at the start of the adventure, but they're a little bit hesitant and afraid to get going?
I think budget is such a huge roadblock for anybody that wants to travel. When you're young, you're usually at your most poor point of your life, and it seems too unattainable to travel. But that can also be true for middle-aged people like myself that are just starting out, because that's the number one thing I hear is, oh, I could never afford that. Oh, I could never afford that. But people are thinking, they're watching a game show and they're seeing a prize package on a trip that they say is worth, $20,000, when I know I could do it for under $1,000 by doing it myself. You don't have to stay in luxury hotels when you travel. You can stay in good hotels in good locations with good ratings. Ratings are so important to research. And use smart apps such as Skyscanner, Booking.com, things like that for the best prices and the best times to go. You have to be willing to not necessarily travel at the exact time you want or to the exact location even that you were thinking of planning. To me, it's all about you find that perfect flight, and then that's where you're going. That's what determines your next destination is the deal. And if you do that, it's going to lead to more and more tools that you'll find along the way that will work for you, and find the deals out there and get you there. Don't think luxury, don't think game show packages.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, that is one thing about traveling. I think I have a similar mindset to the traveler versus vacationer. I don't necessarily, at one time in Zanzibar, I went with a couple of friends to an all-inclusive resort. And I mean, it was incredible. And that was the resort was the experience and the different excursions and such. But typically it's just, you just need a place to sleep because you're not really in your room
You're
that
never
much,
in your room.
right? If you're out seeing and traveling and wandering and getting lost in cities, walking around, then, you know.
Exactly.
You just need like a what? What's your rating on booking.com preference? What's your minimum?
My minimum, I would say, is 7.5.
Okay.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have to be like a perfect location to go lower than that. But the higher stars have to be in the clean category.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear you as well.
I love to be near public transportation. That's also a big thing because, as you know, taxis and Ubers can really add up quickly.
Do you have any tips specifically that kind of come to mind as like, these are just things that have made my list of things that are important?
It's the same as real estate, location. Wherever you're staying, make it accessible to you, make it near what you're going to see. I really use the star system through Google Maps because when I'm planning a trip and I know everything that I want to see or every area that I want to explore, and I can look at the full of the map and see where those stars are sort of congregating, then I know that's the location that I need to be in, and that's...
Okay, I actually don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean the star system on Google Maps?
If you pull up a location on Google Maps, like you can pull up here, we're in Dubai.
Yeah.
If you pull up the Museum of the Future, you can save it, you can star it and save it as a saved place. It will stay on your Google account.
Okay.
And those stars you can see from the map. And when you enlarge it, you see where all of your stars are.
Oh, cool.
Zoom in there.
And then you just kind of find a location in the general medium area.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I have learned so much from her. In fact, I've been in the Middle East for 5.5 years now. And because of her one experience through, I'm like, I'm going Oman, Bahrain, Kuwait. I'm knocking these places off because I too am going to be going nomadic with business project Ultimate Life here in 3-4 months. And I'm going to need some of these strategies also. I just find you incredibly inspiring.
Thank you.
And I will absolutely be following you on your journeys and ideally joining you for several more trips in the future. She is a very easy person to travel with. I think we're both very just laid back and go with the flow, which is good in a way. You have to have somebody who's on it. That can be her role. And I'll just make sure it happens. She gives me a timeline, you know. So if somebody wanted to see where you've been, see your photos, because you're really into photography, right? Is that would you say that is a passion of yours?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Then you've got incredible photos on your Instagram. And the purpose of your Instagram is just to simply show people the places you've been.
It's literally all the friends that ask me, you know, oh, I want to see pictures of your trip, and nobody really wants to see all the pictures of your trip. So now it's out there and they can look if they want to look. They don't have to look if they don't want to.
Perfect. So what is your Instagram if somebody wanted to see where you've been?
It's at Chris Garber 3, and my photo is just a globe.
Perfect. Okay. I'm sure it'll be easy to find you. Thank you so much, Chris. It has been an absolute pleasure traveling with you and doing this interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.